You're watching Chronicle, New England's only nightly news magazine.
A pacifist Christian community with a need for a .44 Magnum.
It's the kind of weapon that Dirty Harry used in the Clint Eastwood movies.
They believe in brotherly love, but they're accused of wiretapping and harassment.
Ultimately, I did receive a total of 3 death threats.
The Bruderhof, a spiritual mission with a corporate jet and some very un-American values. Do you believe in democracy?
No.
It's absolutely unconscionable not to let a father know that his daughter's dying of cancer.
Charges of family ties torn apart or bound too tightly, all in the name of the Lord.
Boy, Satan, he's a wicked guy. He's at work overtime.
The Bruderhof, doing God's work, next.
Tonight, Peter Mahegan, Mary Richardson, with Liz Bruner and Mike Barnacle. Chronicle, New England's nightly news magazine.
The Hattarian Brethren East. Chronicle first visited the Hattarians, or Bruderhof, a few years back. What we saw was a well-ordered Christian community, a life of devotion played out in the daily routines of work and worship, serenity and song. But there have been some discordant notes lately. Ex-members of the community have since come forward with allegations of a different side to life inside the Bruderhof. They tell of a totalitarian world where mind control, wiretapping, weapons, harassment, and paranoia are weaving themselves into the fabric of life in the Bruderhof.
They put on a wonderful front. No, they've had good PR. You know, and there was an article in the Globe about them not so long ago.
Miriam Arnold Holmes, ex-member and granddaughter of the founder, Eberhard Arnold.
This is so completely opposite to what he had in mind.
What Eberhard Arnold had in mind was the kingdom of God come to earth, a radical pacifist Christian community where everything is shared and ego and selfishness are sacrificed at the altar of the common higher good. Founded in Germany, the Bruderhof now has 6 U.S. communities in Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and New York. The life appears simple, but they'll tell you the way is not easy.
The Bruderhof is the hardest church to join. You literally have to fight to get into it.
Christoph Arnold is also a grandchild of the founder, and like his father before him, he's become leader of this community of 2,200. It's an experiment. Does this work?
For us, it's no experiment. It's a commitment. For us, it means life. It means everything. If it doesn't, if it would be an experiment, I wouldn't be here.
Many are not. KIT, or Keep in Touch, is a newsletter that acts as a sounding board for ex-Bruderhof members. KIT was started by Ramon Sender, a one-time Bruderhof novice who dropped out of the community and then lost touch with his daughter, who remained behind. A few years ago, Sender tried once again to contact her, only to be told she had died. Do you blame the Bruderhof at the end for not letting you know that she was sick?
Oh, I think it's absolutely unconscionable not to let a father know that his daughter's dying of cancer. I think it's the most horrible thing in the world.
Sender's experience is shared by other ex-members who claim the Bruderhof pressures their relatives into cutting off family communications.
I think we were very, very badly marked by our...
Tension mounted this summer when the Bruderhof was accused of trying to plant a recording device at a meeting of ex-Bruderhof members.
Yeah, we're out to destroy the Bruderhof. We're out to destroy it as it is currently governed.
Blair Purcell, whose wife grew up in the Bruderhof and hasn't seen her parents in years, says the attempted bugging of the Kingston Conference is part of a larger pattern of harassment the Bruderhof has launched against its critics. One high-ranking ex-member found a wiretap on his phone, and an 800 hotline number for ex-members was put on a phone sex advertisement.
We received 1,713 calls in 22 days. Ultimately, I did receive a total of 3 death threats.
Oh yeah, I'll be watching you. That'll give you something to write about.
A trace on the calls revealed that most came from New York State, near the Bruderhof's Woodcrest community.
Yeah, I got a message for you. Go f*** yourselves.
And you believe this was all orchestrated by people at the Bruderhof?
Nobody else would have any motive. I mean, that's the answer.
I'm accused of, brainwashing, controlling people. This time, I had no control. They didn't listen to me. What should I do?
Christoph Arnold suggests that some overzealous youngsters from the Bruderhof may have made the calls.
I think some called, but they did it against my orders. And do you have any suggestions for me the next time?
I don't buy that for a second. But this guy, what he says goes, and if you say anything against him, you're out. And the leadership in the Bruderhof is really into power, and the only way they can have that power is by knowing exactly what's going on.
How about wiretapping?
I didn't have anything to do with it. So, I mean, you would also like to know what's happening, wouldn't you? If, people get together about your family and so on. So we're also human beings who do mistakes.
Phone taps, harassing calls, electronic surveillance, odd ministries to be sure for devout Amish-like Christians. But nothing has alarmed the critics of the Bruderhof more than Christoph Arnold's application for a license to carry a concealed weapon.
I would say that Eberhard Arnold would be turning in his grave, almost the principle of a rotisserie.
Julius Rubin, author of an upcoming book on the Bruderhof.
It's just unthinkable in terms of their early history that they would have any guns at all.
It's an American right, isn't it?
Arnold says the criticism is overkill. The gun, now gone, was for rabid animals. They say that on the permit application you wrote it was for personal protection.
Against a rabid animal, it is personal protection, and it is the only reason the law enforcement people understand. So I just put it because everybody else puts it that way.
And the concealed weapon that he chose was a .44 Magnum pistol. It's called a cannon. It's the kind of weapon that Dirty Harry used in the Clint Eastwood movies. One doesn't use a .44 caliber laser-sighted weapon that you conceal on your person to shoot a rabid animal. I think that sincerely they're afraid of some type of attack from the outside. I think they really see the world in terms of enemies that are set out to destroy them.
Quite a flap over that weapon, huh?
There is, Peter. Think back to the movie Witness about an Amish community.
Yeah.
The Bruderhof are an Amish-like pacifist group with a strong tradition of pacifism. In a community like that, for a gun to be brought in, it's unthinkable. For example, one of their codes is they'll frequently ask you, what would you do if a murderer came in and tried to murder your children and your family? And the answer is you would put yourself between the attacker and your family, but you would not raise your fist against someone, even someone who intended to do you harm.
Okay. When we come back, Bruderhof family values.
Coming up later, the vow of poverty, jettisoned, and next, cut off from her family, Susanna's story.
I felt that if that's what God was, what they were representing, then I didn't want to have a part of it.
And when did the trouble start for you in the Bruderhof?
Well, trouble, it's hard to say. I think I realized, that I felt that I should leave or wanted to leave by the time I was 12, I would say, because I felt that if that's what God was, what they were representing, then I didn't want to have a part of it.
Susanna Zumpy always had trouble fitting into the restrictive lifestyle of the Bruderhof. She had to make public confessions to such crimes as shaving her legs or listening to Simon and Garfunkel, for example. But at the age of 12, a far more potent evil entered her life. In this sexually reactionary community where hand-holding and flirting are considered the work of the devil, Susanna claims an older male member of the Bruderhof sexually molested her in the shower. He is still with the community, and she's now on the outside, away from the family she loves. Has justice been done there?
I don't feel it has. If somebody there commits a crime that is a crime in the United States of America, that they should also be treated like anybody else living here, and that they shouldn't have their own set of rules.
Are you familiar with the case?
A little bit, but not enough. That happened in one of the other communities.
But you're in charge of the communities, though.
Yeah, but I wasn't involved.
Christoph Arnold pleads ignorance of Susanna's situation. Sort of.
I think Susanna's also exaggerating it. Because I've read her letters in Kid. And you can't believe everything she says.
Susanna now lives with her brother Dieter, who left the Bruderhof 10 years earlier. Their parents are still with the Bruderhof.
Doesn't that hurt as a daughter? Very much it does. I always thought that they would just stick up for me, but I guess I was naive. I mean, I don't think we'll ever be together as a family, and I pretty much accepted that now.
Often, broken families are the result of the Bruderhof practice of church discipline, which involves various degrees of exclusion or shunning. Sometimes members are not allowed to talk to others for a few days. More serious offenders are separated from their families and sent outside the community for a longer time.
We were always told that everybody on the outside is evil.
Miriam Arnold Holmes was excluded for 2 years inside the community. No one spoke to her, no one ate with her, she was a virtual untouchable. Then one day in 1964, Miriam was put in a car and driven out of the community.
And we rode off. They didn't tell me where I was going. Nobody said goodbye. Nobody came to the car.
She was dropped off at a YWCA outside Pittsburgh. The Bruderhof gave her $50 to start a new life.
My heart just broke for my father. I thought, my father is never going to live this one down.
In the outside world, if a child doesn't listen to Papa and Mama, don't they sometimes say, you're out of here if you don't abide by my rules?
To the Bruderhof, exclusion is simply a tool to help man get right with God.
And the minute, where we feel a new beginning, we welcome them with open arms. And it's not, we forget about you.
But does the community see Satan at work in the outside world?
In the outside world, yes, and in us too. Boy, Satan, he's a wicked guy. Man alive, he's at work overtime.
Tough on these family members to be separated like that.
Yes, and they're so separated. It's as if they live on different planets once family members have left the community. Just last week, a young man named Andrew Baisley called to speak to his mother, who was gravely ill, and was told that his mother had in fact died. He had not been informed, and he was told that he would not be welcome to attend her funeral. Andrew decided to go anyway, and in fact was welcomed, and his grandparents offered him some refreshment and felt better for it. But it's very difficult. The community says they don't stand in the way. They just follow the person's wishes, and they will inform people if they're told to do so.
All right. When we come back, politics, religion, and Satan, a dangerous mix.
Tomorrow, a bargain hunter's guide to the outlets of Kittery, Maine. And next, breeding the Bruderhof way. The Bruderhof has several businesses. One makes toys and furniture for daycare centers, another equipment for the handicapped. Then there's the kennel, where critics contend the Bruderhof is breeding attack dogs.
No, it's not true. It's actually what it is. It's a sport. It's like, for Germany, it's like the World Series or the Super Bowl.
Christoph Arnold, whose dog's name, by the way, is Kit, says the notion of attack dogs is just more noise from ex-members who have lost their way.
I feel very sorry for them, because actually deep down they love the community, yet they do not want to take the commitment upon themselves. And sad to say, most of them live a pretty messed up life. Jesus says you should rejoice when you're attacked. So we're actually rejoicing. We must be doing something right.
Indeed, the Bruderhof spent its early years in desperate poverty. No more.
I would say it's in the several $100 million range. We're dealing with a very prosperous, wealthy, powerful group.
Unlike the Amish, the Bruderhof have no aversion to technology. In fact, they're into high technology.
It belongs to free enterprise. I don't know if our listeners have heard of the American dream of free enterprise. And we want part of the pie also.
Arnold says the Bruderhof's Gulfstream jet is chartered out as a business. He acknowledges using it for mission trips, but denies rumors that he uses it for personal vacations with his family.
Some people might think because I travel to Europe, I travel to Israel, I travel to Nigeria, that I'm a very special person and I have lots of fun. It isn't that glorious as it looks.
Now, how does that fit with your grandfather's philosophy?
Poverty. He believed in a vow of poverty. He would say that his flock has really gone astray.
Yes, we live in good times, a lot better, and good times make bad Christians. I told you that, and we have to be careful. But I'm still proud of the jet.
If the Bruderhof has taken to free enterprise, they're not so sure about other American values. Do you believe in democracy?
No. I'm thankful for democracy. Democracy is better. We have lived on a Hitler, so democracy isn't all bad, but democracy can also be a tool of Satan. It can hide other evils.
Satan is real to you. It's not an idea.
He is 100% real. For us, there is only two powers, that's light and darkness. There's no gray in between.
That tendency to see the world in terms of black and white, light and darkness, in or out, us or them, may make finding middle ground difficult.
I mean, Jesus says in the end times, daughter will turn against father, brother against brother, sister against sister, children against parents. The house will be divided. And it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Are there signs that the world is nearing the end times?
Very much.
Like all tragedies, I don't think this tragedy or this story will have a happy ending. I think it's possible that, like other groups, such as the Branch Davidians, that they could become convinced that this was the end time, that the attack made by ex-members, by sociologists, possibly by congressional or governmental investigations would be the end of the world.
At the same time, there are people of goodwill on both sides who want to heal the rift and talk it out and hope to come to some resolution.
That you would hope for. More of Chronicle after tonight's Lottery Live. Stay with us.
On Friday the 13th, how fear sells and who's buying it. Thanks for joining us tonight and have a good evening.
I'm Peter Mahegan.
I'm Mary Richardson. Have a good night.
Good night.